I'm not going to talk a lot about showing you things. I'm going to ask a lot of questions today, and we'll talk about why those things are important that we'll bring up. So, talking about our fundamentals, so our posture, our grip, and our alignment. So, always easy to remember. Remember PGA, posture, grip, alignment. And we'll start with grip, because that's the one thing that connects you to the club, controls where the ball goes. So, what grip do you use? What's it called?
What's it called?
What's the name of your grip? How do you hold it?
I hold like a baseball. I tried interlocking, and my pinky swells up like all hell, and it's been sore for months. So I cannot interlock it.
Okay,
my
so you're 10 finger
joint
baseball.
will not work.
Okay. Show me. Interlock. Yep. I could see the fingers were there. So we have an interlock here.
Interlock.
Mike's interlock. Steve, how about you?
Interlock
as well.
And it didn't affect your pinky at all. I got
must be your
I got a fuck pinky. I don't know. I mean, it gets swollen and everything.
Okay. So,
and I've tried gripping lighter, and it's still.
Okay. So we'll give you a third option, so we've got 2 out of the 3. We have basically 3 grips. Overlap is our third one.
I tried overlap too.
Didn't like that one either.
No,
and then when I talk about grips, it's kind of like to me I don't really care which one you use, as long as it's keeping your hands in a position that they'll remain throughout the swing, and hopefully they'll be able to allow you to square it up. To me, the more important thing is that grip strong or is it weak? And using those 2 terms, what do those mean? If I have a strong grip, what does it mean?
You're positioning your hand on the club. How far over it is.
How far it is. So which way is which?
To the right is strong.
To the right. I would say to the right or clockwise. If either hand goes clockwise on the grip, that puts it into a stronger position. And if either hand goes counterclockwise, that puts it into a weaker position. Okay? So we want to try to have your hands in a, what I call a complementary position. If I have, my hands are kind of, if I'm one weak and one strong, whether it's at this position or that position, it's going to affect how my hands can hinge. So you can see if I'm super weak with my left hand, super strong with my right, when I try to hinge, look at that awkward angle that puts my wrist at. Okay, and vice versa, when I get to where if I was super strong and super weak, so now my forearms are all crossed up. So again, this one's a little bit easier to hinge, but it does kind of put your hands and in turn your shoulders in a much worse position than if we can be fairly neutral. Look at in that position where I can easily hinge my wrists up and down, those hands work together, and more importantly, they don't move around. We don't want it to let go, we don't want the hands to twist as we try to hinge it, because that will lead to a bad club face position of the ball. Okay, so probably one of the best ways to find your natural grip is perfect. You're all standing here very relaxed. So take a look at how your hand is when you're relaxed. See where your arm is, Steve? It's just kind of hanging down, so all of us are kind of in that position where the hand is in a little bit. Mike's probably the most rotated out, and it just, I don't know what causes that, it's your body, your natural position. A lot of times, real big guys their arms tend to be like this. If you're, we're more natural, if you're a slumper, your hands are probably kind of in here.
So in other words, if you've been behind a desk all your life or been working out all your life,
you're probably going to tend to one or the other. So what I have found is one of the easiest ways to do that is if I just kind of put my arm at my side and let it relax, let that club fall in there and squeeze it, probably puts my hand in the most comfortable position it's going to be as far as the left hand. So now when we put the right hand on, all we're trying to do, so you can see if you take your right hand and you start squeezing it like this, like you're going to put it around something, see how it creates this little hollow right here in your hand. So when you put that right hand on the club, we're trying to put the left thumb right there, so that they fit together very nicely. Okay, and then when you put it down in front of you, well, there we go. I've got my hands in a position they can work together, and I would consider that grip fairly neutral, because they both kind of point to that right shoulder. A strong grip would be getting it more like that, where I can maybe see 3 knuckles here, And again, a very weak grip would be something like that, where I could actually maybe see knuckles on my right hand, or maybe see this part of that hand on my left. Okay, so I'm going to try to get relatively neutral. And again, I will adjust that on a case-by-case basis. If you need a little stronger or a little weaker, just based on how you turn and how you release, we'll make adjustments. But that's a good general way to get there. Okay, any questions yet?
Do you pay any attention to where on your left hand where the club grip goes through your hand? There's so much out there on the web. It just talks about, you know, lifeline and all that kind of crap. Mm-hmm. You're putting it right. You're putting it right across the ends of your fingers.
Well, I'm going from the tip of the index finger to the base of the pinky.
Okay, gotcha.
And the reason I do that is that was my next point of what we would refer to as long thumb versus short thumb.
Okay.
Okay, so and if you're in a, quote, long thumb position, that would be where, see how my thumb goes much further down the grip than where my index knuckle is. Okay? To me, that's indicative of baseball. When you hold a baseball bat, you kind of have your hands, again, the club comes to your hand perpendicular to it. Okay? Now, does that give me a good strong grip? Absolutely, but when I try to put it on the ground, look what that does to that wrist. A lot of tension there. It almost hurts me when I put my hand in that position. There's a lot of tension in that. Okay? Versus if I undo my hand and I let it go like this, now when I wrap my fingers, you can see that wrist angle is much more natural, and when I look at it now, the index and the thumb are about at the same point on the grip. I also think that helps now when we're dealing with putting our right hand on. The right hand, that right thumb ends up in the middle of our hand versus like this where, you know, if I can see your left thumb sticking out like that, I'm probably going to be suspicious that right hand or the left hand's in the wrong position. We want it here, so again, they fit together very comfortably. And that starts by coming across the hand at an angle. Okay, so our last thing about grip is going to be pressure. Where's the pressure and how hard is it? Relatively light. The harder you squeeze it, the more tension you have in your forearms, it makes it harder for your club to hinge and maybe in turn release. Pressure comes from these three fingers with your left hand. So the middle, the ring, and the pinky. Because when I get to the top, the last thing I want to happen is for that hand to open up. So I'm going to use those three fingers to actually squeeze it a little bit harder so that when I get to the top, the club stays in this position. That position won't hurt you. Potentially physically and definitely in your swing. I know that one from personal experience. Letting it get like this can lead to dislocated thumbs. Did that. I was warming up to go play one day.
Jeez,
I had a driver in my hand and I got to here and it went like that. And I went to swing at it and I squeezed really hard with my right hand. I felt it. It popped. Well, luckily when I hit it, it popped it back in. But it took about 6 weeks off. And even though that was been probably 6 years ago, that thumb on the joint is still tender if I squeeze it in the right spot. It's also what made me go to an interlock grip. When I came back from that injury, I'd played my whole career as an overlapper. And after I did that, somebody suggested trying the interlock. I hated it for about 3.5 weeks. And then it started feeling a little bit better, and most importantly, it helps me keep that hand on there a little bit better, and a little bit more connected together. So that's why I changed to that. But
you got, the thumb was your left thumb that you popped? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, because it got extended off the grip like that, and then I squeezed really hard with my right hand. Yeah. Because, I mean, very right hand dominant, so it's like, yeah, I'm going to hit this one hard. It was driver, and I went like that, and it definitely affected it. So, okay. So I'm going to say those are my thoughts on grip. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move from grip to posture. So, we've all talked about other sports. basketball, football, anything you've played, any tennis players. All of those sports, when you're in your ready position, where are you? You're hunched over, you're bent over a little bit, the weight's on the balls of your feet because you're in that position where you're ready to move one way or the other. Okay? Golfers in athletic mode. What's that?
I was cracked. So.
Track?
Yeah.
I guess you were more like this, weren't you? Or did you just start from this?
No, mid distance, mile, half mile.
Okay.
Yeah, so
You weren't too much in ready position.
What's fast enough for
But so being a runner, because somebody made this comment yesterday. You land on the heel? When you run?
No.
Not
Ball your foot.
Yeah. So that's perfect feedback. You want to always be on the balls of your feet in the swing. So when I'm in my good posture, when I'm in this position, then I'm going to tilt first from the hip, and then I relax my knees, and when I do that, you can see how easy it is for me to tap my heels. Now, I'm not so far forward that I'm curling my toes in to keep me upright, but I am in that position where I can't pick my foot off the ground. If I'm too far back on my heels, now I could do this. So if you feel like you could do that when you're set up, you're probably in the wrong position with your weight. Okay? Another way to feel that, hop up. When you land, you're going to land in almost perfect posture. Because you're going to land on the balls, you're pushing that blow when you hit. So when I'm in that good posture, when I relax, you can see my fingers are probably about 3 to 4 inches away from my knees. If I'm not tilted over enough, what would happen? And then my hands are right here, almost touching my legs. Or if I flex my knees too much as I go into that, same thing could happen. I have my knees pushed out too far, his hands are going to be very close. Make sure that you are tilted, relaxed, relaxing. Whenever they're relaxed, that's where I let my hands forward. Hopefully, Caesar next about to see it, my spine in this position should be very flat. That's when at the end of the season last year we talked about neutral posture. What is neutral? Hunched over and nobody is covered. Nice, natural, flat back. And be balanced. Okay? Yeah. I mean, really the cat-cow shit? Talk about that one.
I took a yoga class one time when I was fit, young, and I could put my hands on the ground. Mm-hmm. But the guy said no. He said and he would fold himself. I was arching my back, and he would fold himself like it was a hinge. Mm-hmm. And that was freaky. I mean, like what you're doing, you're arching your back. I mean, he would he would just fold.
Yeah.
And like.
That's when you're extremely flexible in the hips.
Yeah.
That's what allows you to do that. And you know, typically men are not flexible in their hips. That's one of the, I guess, the functions of the differences between men and women. Our hips aren't flexible like women's are. And that's something that you have to work on. Because if they're not that flexible, it does make it hard to make that rotation. Okay. Any questions there about posture? Okay, so we'll jump over to alignment. So, I'm going to use my sticks today. So,
Shame we can't use this on the golf course.
you can't, but
I know, you got to look at a position.
You can certainly use
if you
this
can find
to train
something.
yourself. What it looks like. I mean, that's been our discussion. You know, our comment all week is, I get somebody in the right position, and they look up and they're like, no, I'm going to hit it way over there. Or I'm going to hit it over there. And what I'll tell you is that that's your sensation when you look up. For right now, next time you're on the golf course, say, you know what, I'm going to aim it over there. Because that's when you're truly going to be set up in the right position. So until you train your eye what it looks like to be set up properly, it may take a little bit of that. Okay, so what is our proper setup? So we're looking at parallel lines and perpendicular lines when we talk about setup. So I like to, when I describe this typically, something you would see in the world, a big machine on it.
Railroad track.
Railroad tracks, very good. I don't know if I'd got anybody to get it without giving the clue yet this week. Okay? Think about railroad tracks. So we have, what's this line called? Or what would the right-hand rail be called? Golf ball is right there. That's our target line. That's our target line. We'll talk about my path relative to that, but this would be called my target line. So if I think about standing here, I want the right-hand rail to go directly to my target. And when I sit up, I'm trying to get my body parallel to that. So I'm going to envision I'm standing on that left-hand rail. So you can see my toes, my knees, my hips. My grip is proper. That line across my forearms and the line across my shoulders are all on that parallel line. So here's where you can see if I have that odd grip where my hands are kind of like this. Now you can see my forearms are actually pointed way over there. If you look down the line that he's created. So that's why that grip's important, so that we can set up in a very square position. Okay? So everything about my body is parallel. Everything about the club needs to be perpendicular. So look at your bottom groove. On that iron, or the hybrid, most likely you can still use the groove. With the driver, I say look at your top line. And when I put that on the ground, it should be perpendicular to the stick. That's how I know the club is aimed at the target. That makes sense? Now, will we adjust that if you have a predominant shape? Yes, we might. But thinking about truly how you're going to line up, now you're just your target line shifts, so your parallel line and everything shifts as well. But this is probably one of the easiest ways to think about how you're setting it up. So now, I've got 7-iron in my hand. Where should the ball be positioned?
Kind of midway.
Kind of right, probably very close to the middle, we'll call it. So here's another way we can use our lines. So here, Bob, this goes to, on the golf course, how do I do this? So on the golf course, I've picked a little target, hopefully that's something to aim at, a little chunk of grass, or maybe even that divot if I can kind of see that far. So once I put my club down perpendicular to that line, and set my feet up, if I were to take that club and drag it towards me on the line, see where it ends up? Right in the middle of my feet.
Now I got a question. This is somewhat related, but in positioning. It took me forever because I didn't have this class and I wasn't looking at YouTube because they weren't around at the time.
Right.
Not knowing exactly where to have that ball set up on my position, and then figured out it's the bottom of the arc, which makes sense. Now, in grass that doesn't exist, where it's like that, when I was doing that, I was taking divots.
Okay.
So I went last weekend, or yesterday, and I held it just a little bit back on that. So as I'm coming down on it,
So you're
and I was hitting the ball.
You're catching
Is that
the ball.
right, or am I just looked out?
It makes perfect sense, because if I move it back, like you said, where's the low point?
Yeah.
The low point's going to be here, so if I put the ball slightly behind my low point, I'm going to catch
The ball first.
first, and then my club would hit the ground.
Yeah.
So in conditions, and I would say like this time of year, in conditions we have, the ground is very soft. We've had, 3 inches of rain in the last month. There's not a lot of grass. So it's your club is very susceptible to hitting the turf and digging in, where in the middle of summer, it would be less likely to do that. So that's a fine adjustment to make this time of
all right,
year.
so that's a reasonable. I thought that was reasonable. I tried it yesterday and it worked for me. It's a 9 out of 10 times.
It's also a way that you can change the trajectory of the shot. Because, and I would say that would be moving it back a little bit more, but if I move it back more, now my club, when it hits it, has less loft on it because it hasn't bottomed out. Right. That is a way to kind of, we've all kind of, you have to hit that shot that you need to keep under a tree or branch or something like that. That's a pretty common adjustment. I'm going to move it back in my stance a little bit so that I'm hitting down on it. So you see the difference in that club head position versus if I was in my normal position. Big difference in the loft right there. So that's a fine adjustment to make right now.
So do you do, on your normal, do you have a little bit of a forward press with your club, or?
I do. I recommend that. I think it makes perfect sense to put your hands in a position very close to where you want them when you hit it. So by starting in this position, it also keeps my left wrist in a very solid position. If I'm starting with my hands like this, it just makes it so easy for that wrist to break down coming through. So yep, it would be the difference of there. So see my arms here, you've all heard me talk about my letters. I look like a capital Y here versus lowercase y when I get to that position.
Kelly, I swear, where that ball is sitting right there, I don't see it as smack dab in the middle. I see it about an inch in front of your
and
buttons.
That's where I would play it.
Okay, so that...
Knowing that as I'm rotating into it,
Yep. You're going to move...
My center goes
that way.
Just a little bit. So
okay.
Yes, it's very close to the middle, but it's not right on it.
All right.
I picture my iron ball position is about there.
Yep.
My hybrid is about there, and the driver's about there.
Okay, got it.
I mean, it really does. It moves forward, kind of.
I'm sorry, could you do that again? Because I was at an angle, I couldn't see it straight on.
I'm going to grab my driver as well. So basically, it would be. I'm going to keep them all there so you can really see the difference. For iron, I'm going to set up about like that. And my hands, as I look down at my hands, the grip cap looks like it would hit my leg right there, kind of right mid-thigh. Okay, so now if I had the hybrid in my hand, I would be further away from it because of the length, and my hands would be like that. So again, the ball is further forward in my stance, but look where that grip is again. It's right on that left thigh. It's the exact same position. And now if I grab driver, stay there, ball. Okay. Pretty close. And that would be when I set up with driver. So my hands are kind of probably about even with the ball, but again, see where that grip is. It's right on the left side. And you can see now the difference in my setup position, how much farther away that ball is with driver.
Yep.
And that's a question I get, like, how far away from the wall do I stand? Well, that one's impossible to answer because every club, the wedge ball would be about right here, the 4-iron ball, the wedge would be probably almost there, the 4-iron, probably just beyond, like 4-iron probably would set up about to that spot because of the length of the club. The hybrid, the ball would be about there, and then obviously the driver's way out.
So, Kelly, may I ask you one other question?
Yep,
as
absolutely.
follow-up. If that's where you would tee off your driver, see, where would you, if you're using a tee like this with like 3, where would you plant it?
Probably 2. I want
Right
about
here.
half the ball above the top of the club.
See, I mean, I plan it on around 2, but I have mine a little bit further up as some on the upswing.
Same spot. I mean,
Okay.
I don't. There's such.
I didn't know if you were putting it lower because were you here?
No.
And as a result, when I do it a little bit further up on my foot, I'm up, you know,
And I
teeing
would
up
argue
higher.
It's fractionally higher because even if I move the ball forward an inch, you know, the club's only going to travel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a lot of difference in how far it's coming off the ground yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's still a good general rule, about half the ball above the top is our position there. But again, in all of those positions, and back to taking a look at left-hand position, so the left hand with the 7-iron would be there, the driver is there. I'm just a touch higher, but really left to right it doesn't change too much. And the important thing is I'm not, with the longer club, I'm not standing tall. That posture is the same for every swing, every setup. I'm here. It's just where the club handle ends up that changes where my arms end up.
At this stage in your career, applying, you're pretty good, experience. How much attention do you place swing to swing in position of the ball? And I know the grip's probably almost automatic to you now, but how much do you pay?
I have to pay more attention to the grip than I do the ball position.
Really?
Because my grip tends to get...
Your natural tendency is...
tends to get a little strong.
Okay.
So I tend to hook it. My natural flight is a draw, and my natural back shot is a big hook. So
okay.
I definitely have to pay more attention to hand position. But you know, and a lot of that is my process to set up to hit it. You know, if I were going to hit this shot, if I'm on the golf course and I'm hitting the shot over there, you know, we talked about routine. I've started back here. I've got my hand where I want it.
Okay.
As I'm walking in, I put my other hand on, so that when I get to this point, club on the ground, and then I set my feet. So I'm always looking at that position right there.
Are you routinely looking at the alignment of your two toes parallel to the target line?
I mean, I think I glance down.
Just automatic kind of, okay.
That to me, I'm fairly good at getting my feet in the right position. So
Okay.
I don't think about it as much. And some shots I'll actually be kind of
Where
like
you got the
I'll
left-
have the left foot back. You know,
Okay.
If I'm hitting a little pitch shot, I probably have that foot back just a touch.
All right.
So I don't pay as much attention there. For me, it's more about, is my spacing correct? You can see how I'm starting this process. I put my club here. Right now I'm extremely balanced on my foot. I'm almost 50-50 heel versus toe. I could do this or I could do that. See how very balanced. But I know back to the earlier discussion, I want to be on the balls of my feet when I swing it. So once I'm set, I do my waggle and then I put the club on the ground behind it. And you can see that there's a distinct shift there, and now I can only do this. That helps me get to that spot. It's hard for me to step into it and feel that. So that's just a little thing that I do. So, but again, practicing that routine makes that foot position easy to get to, because I start kind of here, where the ball's right in front of me, even step both directions, and I'm in the right spot.
And you're actually positioning the club head about inch, well, really behind the ball slightly, and then as you get ready to strike the ball, you move it forward and center it in the club face. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And again, that's completely about my balance point here.
Okay.
I mean, you should be able to see that when I'm here versus when I set it. See that move?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what puts me
Okay.
in that position. That's just I found that's the easiest way for me to get to that position. Certainly, probably in the minority there, but I found out if you find something that works, that's consistent, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So, any other questions there? That alignment. No. Awesome. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to give 3 of you a stick. I see Steve has his own, so I'll let him use his. So all I want you to do today is do the setup. Pay a little bit of attention to that stick. Make sure you're getting the club face square. Make sure you're getting your feet parallel, and let's see what happens. And the last thing that's helpful with the stick, hey, like we said, you know exactly where it's aimed. Please feel free to aim them where you want to, so that will help you visually say, okay, I'm aimed in the right spot or I'm not. Also going to give you, if you take a divot, you'll be able to tell. Was my path down the line? Was it in the out? Was it out the in? And that's a good way to diagnose, or at least maybe not diagnose, but to help you. I see the ball do this, well, now I understand why, because my divot did this. So it's a good way to help you start understanding what the swing's doing. Okay.